I can excuse racism, but I draw the line at animal cruelty.
You can excuse racism.
So obviously with any popular piece of media brings in a large audience, and within that audience there's going to be discourse, people discussing their opinions, arguing back and forth about those opinions, typical stand Twitter discourse or whatever app you're on. And I feel like that's fine, normal for the most part, but it gets to a point when people are being harassed, and not only harassed, but harassed to the point of either privating their accounts, deactivating their accounts, or having to turn their comments off, then it's an issue. And I feel like with this recent issue in the JJK fandom, it's definitely become an even bigger issue that needs to be addressed. And so that's why I decided to make a video specifically talking about the rampant lesbophobia in the JJK fandom. And just a few disclaimers before I start. First of all, this video is not meant to be a hateful one whatsoever. It's simply bringing attention to an issue that's been ongoing in the fandom for a while now, and hopefully starting a discussion, well, I would say adding to a discussion because people have been talking about it already, about simply calling out problematic behavior in fandom. One of the main reasons why fandom is so miserable and toxic these days. So yeah, if you're someone that is looking to start more fan wars and discourse, this video is not for you. Also, if you're the type to not watch the video all the way through before commenting or having opinion on something that is said, this is also not the video for you. Again, this is just starting a healthy discourse on an issue that is long overdue of being addressed. Also, another disclaimer, there will be manga spoilers throughout the video, so if you're not caught up with the manga, definitely do not watch this video, or at least just be mindful of spoilers throughout. So yeah, let's just jump into the discussion. So what's bringing a lot of this lesbophobia in the fandom to light is the recent rise in hate for the ship between Nobara and Maki, also known as Nobamaki. In basically any shonen fandom you enter, there's going to be hate for a queer ship. Like, whether it's lesbian, gay, what have you, there's going to be hate. But something about the Nobamaki hate train just seems different to me. Like, the amount of hate that they get, I've never seen it for any ship really before, and I've been in many shonen fandoms. So I want to discuss the main talking points that you'll see people use to either invalidate Nobamaki as a ship or to harass Nobamaki shippers. Number one, actually, Utamaki is canon. The canon warriors, y'all, I swear. So shipping has never really been about canon. It can be influenced by canon, but that's not why shipping was created. Shipping has always been about, as people like to say, playing with our dolls. This character and this character should kiss, should date, should marry. It has nothing to do with canon interactions or anything like that. It's just simply how you personally feel about a dynamic between two characters. And I always feel like it's the people that aren't really deep in fandoms for real, like they're just a fan of the thing, but not actually a part of the fandom, because there is a difference, um, that use this whole canon argument. Because again, canon just gives you the story. Obviously you should have an understanding of the story, but you don't have to stick within the confines of just what is canon, what is simply stated to you. And that's part of the fun of fandom, exploring the what ifs, the possibilities, the different connections that you can make between different characters. Sometimes characters that aren't even in the same universe, but I'll get to that. So yeah, telling a shipper that, oh, this ship isn't canon is basically going in one ear and out the other, because we don't care. I promise you, no one gives a fuck. Like, we're gonna ship people regardless of what is and what isn't canon. Also, people are allowed to disagree with canon, just because something happens in a story, just because the author decides to make a choice in a story, doesn't mean you have to agree with every choice that the author makes. And that's perfectly fine. It doesn't take away your overall enjoyment of the story of the thing. It's just disagreeing with the author. Then we have number two. Oh my god, they don't even interact that much in canon. Like, Maki does not care about Nobara at all. Didn't I just tell y'all that shippers do not care about canon? Because we really don't, I promise you. Two characters can breathe next to each other and a ship is born. Like, it's really that simple, because this stuff is just fun for us, because that's what fandom is supposed to be. Fun, not super strict, not following these hyper specific guidelines. Like, it's just fun. You see two characters, you get a vibe, and you ship them. It's really that simple. However, I do like to play devil's advocate sometimes, so let's go along with what you're saying. Oh, they barely interact in canon. True. It's true that Nobara and Maki barely interact in canon. Now, why do we think that is? Like, seriously, how many compelling relationships between two female characters in a shonen work do we have? I genuinely want to know the answer. Give me numbers. Come on. Like, let's call it what it is. These authors do not care about their female characters. I mean, why do you think it's such a controversial topic to talk about, oh, which shonen work has the best written female cast? Because they're all underdeveloped and not fully fleshed out in some way compared to their male counterparts, which I actually talk about in a different video, the ideal female shonen character. But anyways, of course, Maki and Nobara don't have that many interactions because they're not allowed to by the author. They're only able to form close interpersonal relationships between them and their male teammates, unfortunately. But I think if the characters had their own autonomy, Maki would definitely show her like how she cares about Nobara, and they would just in general have more on-screen interactions. And that also goes for like people saying like, oh, she had no reaction to Nobara's return at the end, and I'm like, honestly, JJK in general doesn't really show characters interacting or even like reacting to traumatic things or big moments. Like if someone dies, not everyone's reaction to it will be shown. I think that's just a JJK thing, not really a Nobamaki thing. Also, Maki was going through her own shit at the time. Like she didn't really have time to be like, oh, hey Nobara, what's up? So number three, um, Nobara isn't even Maki's type. She wants someone that's stronger than her. First, I just want to say this particular screenshot has haunted me for months on end. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you want to take Juju strolls as canon, by all means go ahead. I personally don't. You know, to me, they were always just like fun little side stories. Yes, even if it was included in the manga, again, I don't feel like it has any real impact on the main story, but that's just me. But I mean, let's say it is canon. You do know that people don't always end up with the person that they thought was their type. In fact, I feel like it's more common than not to end up with someone that's not your like initial type. So I feel like it's really one of those things where you can take her words literally, or you can just like play around with it, like use it as a baseline, but not like strict rules like, oh, she would not date anyone that's not as strong, I mean, stronger than her. Like, it's really not that serious, and it's not the argument that y'all think it is. Okay, moving on to number three, four, something like that. Um, Nobamai solos Nobamaki. Like, why ship that when you can ship Nobamai? My thing is, why use one Yuri ship to put another one down where you can just ship them both and even more? Like, I don't know why there's like a limit on the amount of Yuri ships you can like in one series. Like, if you're a real Yuri enjoyer, why limit yourself? Also, unfortunately, I think a lot of people that bring Nobamai into these discussions don't even care about them for real. Because I guarantee if you went on half of their accounts, you would not see one tweet about the ship, not one repost of fan art, nothing. And also, I don't think they really care about the characters individually either, but like Nobamai is literally a fine ship in its own right. Why are you only bringing it up when the topic of Nobamaki comes to the front? Like it's very interesting and very noticeable. Like nobody was born yesterday. You guys are doing it on purpose, and it's just sad how Yuri ships have to be like pit against each other like this. Number five, it's gotta be five. The term Yuri slop just being a thing. Yeah, let's talk about it. This is really when lesbophobia comes to the forefront because why are we using this term to describe a ship we don't like? I know the term slop has become popular on stan Twitter, stan culture in general in the past couple of years, you know, and it can be fun to describe things that we don't like or care for that much as slop. You know, it's a funny word, slop. Slop this, slop that. And I think in shipping culture and fandom culture, het slop is the term that caught wind first, you know, when it comes to ships. And it's funny because, you know, oftentimes in shonen, the ships that end up being canon often have little to no development, no impact on like the themes in the story, just no relevance really until the end of the story where they are suddenly married with kids, you know. So it's easy to be like, yeah, that's het slop. You know, am I supposed to be moved by this? I also think it's easy to like make light of it because let's be honest, there's never been a shortage of straight ships in fandom or straight people in general, you know, like it's not like you're punching down when you say head slop. So honestly, if you're offended by that term, like please grow thicker skin. You're not the oppressed being that you think you are. However, I just feel that Yuri slop and even like yaoi slop are different, because in that way you are punching down, even if you're queer yourself. I feel like using the term Yuri slop is just weird and wrong because just think of the kind of audience that you're drawing when you make posts about like, oh, this ship is Yuri slop. Like, who cares about it? You might think it's simply you voicing your opinion on a ship that you just don't care for, because obviously you don't have to like every ship just because it's Yuri. But I think the way we talk about certain ships, when we're in certain fandoms, knowing that there's already a problem with like lesbophobia and homophobia, we have to be more mindful of the way we phrase things and talk about things. And this is something that like really annoys me the most when it comes to seeing like the rise in Nobomaki hate, because just seeing other queer people intentionally or unintentionally set sapphic people up to be harassed when they make these little Yuri slop posts. Because all you have to do is check your comment section, check the people that are retweeting and interacting. I know I keep mentioning Twitter, that's just where I see most of this stuff happening. But yeah, just check the comment sections of these posts that you're making, and what's the demographic of people that usually show up? Homophobic dude bros. Like, I don't know how it's hard to see, or like when people come bring this to your attention, you're like, oh, I'm not being homophobic, I'm not being lesbophobic, I just don't like the ship. Okay, did you have to use the term Yuri slop? Like, you're literally slopifying something that is queer, that is sapphic, and you see no issue with that just because it's fictional? No, because like it or not, fiction can and does affect reality. Because it's not just the fictional ship that people are coming after. It's real life people that enjoy the ship that are being harassed. The fictional characters are fine. They don't have to face it, but real life people, real life queer, sapphic, lesbian people are the ones facing the harassment. And you guys don't seem to think about that when you make your so-called silly, lighthearted posts. And that's like one of my main annoyances, like with this rise of Novamaki hate, just watching other sapphic people join in on the jokes, thinking that these dude bros are laughing with them when in reality they're laughing at you. It's similar to how people like a popular fandom opinion is like, oh, Megumi's gay as hell, like it's undeniable, right? Fork found in the kitchen. When dude bros are comfortable saying that, people are like, oh, even the dude bros can't deny it or whatever. They're not saying that in a good way. They're saying it in a way to demean him, because they already try and take away Megumi's masculinity. He doesn't react a certain way that they expect him to with his depression and things like that, the trauma that he's been through. They expect him to get back up, pull himself up by his bootstraps type of thing, and they just overall demean and disrespect him on the daily. Like, hello, have you been a part of the JJK fandom for more than a day? You'll know what I'm talking about. Um, but yeah, just you think they're making these jokes in good faith, but again, anything that has to do with gayness or being feminine as a man is being seen as less than. And all roads lead back to misogyny and lesbophobia obviously go hand in hand. So it's the same kind of thing, and I really don't see how people don't realize it. I mean, today it's Yuri slop, and tomorrow you're gonna get called a lesbophobic slur. That's really how slippery the pipeline is, which is why I think we just need to be more mindful of what we post. I know freedom of speech is a thing, but just use your freedom more wisely. Is your freedom really worth opening up a space for homophobia and lesbophobia to run rampant? And then number 6, I think, um, oh, God forbid masculine women like men, you don't have to make everyone a lesbian. So I have a couple of different thoughts about this. One, I feel like when people say this, they usually have post Shibuya Maki in mind, as like our starting point of when we started viewing Maki this way, or like shipping Nova Maki, and that's simply not true. It probably is true for some people, but for the most of us, we've been shipping Novamaki from the start of JJK, honestly. For me, when I started reading the manga, it got to that one panel of like the two of them, Nova and Maki, standing like close to each other. I'm like, yeah, that's gay. And yeah, just in general, the limited interactions that we got were enough for a lot of people to ship Novamaki. It was really that simple. Now, when we talk about post Shibuya Maki and like how that influences a person's decision to view her as a lesbian, I feel like a lot of you guys sound like those people that are like, oh, let women be feminine. Let women date men as if that's not the norm already. And it's just kind of ridiculous. Like, no one's saying that every masculine woman is a lesbian. Um, like, obviously, that's simply not true, just like every feminine man isn't gay. However, if a real life masculine lesbian sees themselves in Maki, like, what's the harm in being like, oh, that's a lesbian? I don't see why people get have such a harsh reaction to this headcanon. Like, it's again not that serious. A part of fandom culture, shipping culture. Like, you see a character, they resonate with you in some way, or like you know someone like them in real life, and you want to headcanon them as a lesbian or even like a butch lesbian. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. And also, because I feel like this is a common thing, not even just in the JJK fandom, just whenever someone dares to headcanon a masculine woman as a lesbian, um, people act like they're just so common in media, like, oh, just another masculine woman being called a lesbian, here we go again. Mind you, name me 5 masculine women that end up being lesbians in mainstream media. Right. There's no real issue with calling a masculine female character a lesbian. Um, and there's also nothing wrong with not viewing her that way. I just don't get why you're so mad about someone else's interpretation of Maki as if it personally affects you. Um, there's no shortage of like masculine women ending up with men, so like why are you fighting so hard to downplay my headcanon and disprove it? It makes no sense to me. And then my last point is whenever someone expresses their disappointment with how Maki ended up getting married at the end of JJK, people love to say, oh, so you don't want her to be happy, right? You want her to be miserable and alone for the rest of her life. Gotcha. So the only way for a woman's story to be truly satisfying and happy is for her to be married with kids. Yeah, are we seeing how misogynistic that sounds? I think the main reason why many people, myself included, don't like this ending for Maki is simply because we go through this story watching this female character liberate herself and her sister inherently from this oppressive clan, just going against traditional things that are expected of a woman, of a female character, only for her to end up in an oppressive system at the end of her story. That's why we're upset. It has nothing to do with her being happy or whatever. It's just, it seems like almost a disservice to her character after being shown having this such important and impactful arc. She literally goes through an entire transformation from when we first see her in the beginning of JJK to the end. If you just look at how she looked, the way she dressed and everything from then and then post Shibuya. And of course, her getting burned by Jogo had to do with that. It's not like her own personal choice to change her appearance, but I just feel like it's symbolic of her like freeing herself from others' expectations and just becoming a new and improved version of herself. And we can even see that in her fight with the sumo guy. She had a moment where she just felt like free. I forgot exactly the quote from it, but it reminded me of Gojo, that moment when he's fighting Toji and he just feels free when he uses his technique for the first time. He just feels like, an out of body experience. And I feel like Maki felt the same way during that kind of therapy session with the sumo guy. So just in general, this whole transformation, like her character just feels very transformative and again, going against what's expected of her, going against traditions. So to end up in a traditional role just seems like counterintuitive to me and it was definitely like disappointing. Also, people like to make it seem like the only way for her to be happy or like the only person to get her through all the trauma and stuff that she went through is a romantic partner, which simply isn't true. I've always hated how we put romance on like such a high pedestal when community is really what's important, romantic and platonic relationships and obviously familial too. I would have really liked to see Maki's relationships with the other characters explored more in the future, like especially her and Megami, considering they're each other's only living relative. We could have definitely gotten some interesting things with their relationship. And I feel like even her relationship with Toge should have been explored more, considering they were like peers. And then obviously the others two, Nobara and Yuji, like there are options. It doesn't always have to be like defaulted to romance. She could have just had the community in general around her. Even Yuta, like I enjoyed her and Yuta as friends. I feel like their dynamic was good. It didn't need to be like pushed to marriage, in my opinion. But um, yeah, just the way people talk about it as if like her being married saved her from her trauma when it really didn't. We can even see her later down the road talking about how she still feels so bad about how Mai like died and stuff and how she wasn't able to save her. Um, so yeah, it's like marriage isn't like a end all be all situation to all types of trauma and stuff, and it also isn't the only way for a woman or female character to end up happy in life. There's honestly no guarantee that someone will be happy in life, but I do feel like community and friendship, platonic relationships should be just as pushed as romantic relationships. Also, going back to how like the institution of marriage is like inherently oppressive, um, a lot of people take that as like a dig on you to like, oh, you think he's oppressing her, you think he forced her to marry him, whatever, when it has really nothing to do with Yuta. And I hate how these conversations always circle back to him when we're talking about Maki and her role. Um, Obviously, like I said, marriage is inherently oppressive, and no matter how much your husband loves you and cares about you, it doesn't stop the institution from being oppressive, you know? It's a reason why women give away their last name and not the men. At the end of the day, it's Yuta's clan, not Maki's clan. She can't even be co-head of the clan simply because she's a woman. So no matter how much he cares about her, Maki is still being oppressed in a way um, by being married and being a part of this clan because she's obviously in a secondary role. And that's where the frustration comes from. It has nothing to do with how Yuta treats her. It's just the system set up. So now I hope you can see how ridiculous all the hate that Nobamaki gets is and like where it stems from because you know like I said earlier, as much as people want to beat around the bush and like jump through hoops to explain why, oh, I just don't like the ship, it's not for me, it's never that simple, and most things lead back to lesbophobia and misogyny, which again go hand in hand. It is perfectly okay and fine to not like a ship, but to go on and harass people that do like the ship isn't okay, and that should be obvious. You know, we've all been on the internet long enough to know if you don't like something, block or simply ignore it. It's really that simple, especially when it comes to like harmless things like a ship that's not even real at the end of the day, characters aren't real at the end of the day. um, you know, people continue to struggle with this concept. And I really just think it all stems from people not being able to take a step back and be like, you know what, let me think about the current state of the world, the current laws that are trying to be passed to harm queer people, real life queer people, and that maybe these queer people that I'm coming for simply liking a ship should be left alone. They just want to be able to go online for an escape, you know, log into their favorite social media app and scroll through the hashtag of their favorite ship online and not be constantly met with hate and harassment. And this especially goes out to other queer people that feel the need to hate on Nobamaki because who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to look good for? You will not be chosen by the straight people. You will not be spared from the bigotry from straight people. So all the endless hate needs to end. This is starting to sound like a PSA for bullying and it's kind of embarrassing, but you know what? No, it needs to be said clearly because a lot of y'all at your grown ass age are still trying to be bullies. I just think we need to go back to the basics of fandom. You know, obviously there's never been a completely utopian side of fandom, but things definitely used to be better than they are now. And that's because people actually knew how to have fun. There was more creativity and curiosity in fandom. There was less infighting, you know, agree to disagree, or if you really don't fuck with me that much, block me. You know, just basic. I hate to use the term because I feel like some people use it for nefarious reasons, but there was basic fandom etiquette at one time, and we seriously lost that. And unfortunately, I don't see an end to this hate for queer ships, including Nobamaki, coming anytime soon, but I just hope that if even one person can like stop before they post something about a queer ship and think, do I really have to voice my opinion on this? You know, what kind of audience am I attracting? And is it really that deep? You know, there's going to be things that I don't like, and I simply scroll and not comment on them, especially for you grown folk in the back. Like, I'm used to teenagers and kids being petty, you know, it's kind of their thing, but grown people my age and older, it's ridiculous. Like, there's really no excuse. Grow up. But anyways, that is the end of this video. Thank you if you stuck with me all the way through. And if you happen to be a Nova Maki shipper, just know that this is definitely a safe space. I mean, I feel like that should be obvious at this point. And continue to post whatever you want to post and engage in like all the fanfic, fan art that you want for Nova Maki. It's a beautiful ship and you shouldn't let people, like haters or whatever, stop you from enjoying what you like.